29 entries, 5 levels. From a secretive council that rules the world from the shadows, to anomalies that will hunt you down just for seeing their face, these are the most disturbing SCPs ever written. Level 1. Mildly unsettling or neutral. O5 Council. Let's start at the top. Literally. If you want to know who runs the SCP Foundation, it's the O5 Council. Officially, they're called Overwatch Command. Everyone else just says the O5s. They sit way above everybody else and nobody outranks them. So what's the big deal? Secrecy. Not just a little. Illuminati level secrecy. Nobody's even sure how many O5s there are. Some files say 13. Others hint maybe it's more or less. Or that the number changes when nobody's looking. If you're not an O5, you're not supposed to know. Simple as that. Every O5 has level 5 clearance. That's top of the top. If it's too classified for regular agents, the O5s are probably making the call. But they don't micromanage. They only show up for the world-ending stuff, like catastrophic breaches or new anomalies that could snap reality in half. For most Foundation staff, the O5s are like ghosts. You follow orders, hope you never meet one. But here's where things get interesting. You'll see claims about O513 surviving full-on reality resets, walking away from disasters that should have erased them from existence. So, are they immortal? Are they even human? Nobody really knows. Maybe some of them are anomalies too, locked up and running the Foundation at the same time. But the funny thing, that's still mild compared to what we have down this iceberg. Bottom line, the O5s are untouchable. In one storyline, the Chaos Insurgency actually manages to assassinate almost all of them. But then you hear rumors that some O5s just can't be killed, or that replacements just slide right in. Nobody's ever sure. That's how deep it goes. In the end, think of the O5 Council as the world's shadowy board of paranormal directors. They control the cover-ups, the big decisions, sometimes even create anomalies if it fits the plan. And if you think these puppet masters are unsettling, just wait until you meet the administrator on level 2. Because even the O5s answer to someone, or something, higher. The administrator's identity is so classified, some say it might not even be human. SCP-914. The Clockworks. Technically, it's a giant antique machine packed with more gears, levers, and spinning parts than your grandma's sewing kit. But if you think you can control what comes out, you haven't spent enough time around the Foundation. Here's how it works. It has 2 booths, one for intake, one for output. That's when it gets bizarre. Set a wristwatch to rough and you get back a little pile of gears and dust. Pour in a glass of water and choose very fine, and suddenly it's glowing with an unknown liquid no one wants to taste. One test produced a sheet of metal that folds itself like it's alive. Another gave them a battery that never runs out but shocks anything that touches it. There's a reason test logs are miles long. Half of it sounds made up, and the other half feels like it came from a fever dream. And still, the scientists keep coming back, because occasionally this thing gives you something useful. A level 1 keycard becomes a level 5, just like that. But push your luck, and you might accidentally birth a whole new SCP. Nobody knows where it came from. It's not evil, it's not alive, it just doesn't care. Think of it like a vending machine for cursed upgrades. No refund button, no manual, and way more existential dread. While the Clockworks turns whatever you put in it into strange, twisted versions of itself, there's another machine that does something even weirder. Instead of changing things, it just makes it bigger and weirder. It's the reason for every endless hallway and infinite maze in the SCP universe. It's called SCP-184, and we'll get to that in level 2. SCP-999, the Tickle Monster. Not every SCP is scary or dangerous. Tickle Monster is living proof that some secrets are actually really sweet. Literally. He's a jiggly orange blob that smells like happiness and feels like warm peanut butter. It's about the size of a big dog, a little heavier than a toddler and constantly bouncing with excitement. Its whole existence revolves around one mission, making people smile. It wiggles over to anyone nearby, wraps them in a squishy hug, and starts tickling them with soft jelly limbs. Doesn't matter who you are, sad, angry, cold-hearted, if you're near it, you feel better. It even releases your favorite smell, tailored just for you. Chocolate, flowers, old library books, whatever works. And the joy sticks around. People report lingering happiness hours after leaving. It's basically antidepressant slime, but way more adorable and without the side effects. Tickle Monster doesn't eat meat, doesn't attack, doesn't ask for much, just candy. M&Ms are his favorite. And if it ever accidentally hurts someone during play, it immediately deflates into a sad puddle until forgiven. The Foundation doesn't lock it up so much as give it a playroom. Staff are encouraged to visit for morale. There are full-on tickle fights, complete with mercy tap-outs and wrestling matches. But here's where things get crazy. Tickle Monster once met SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile, which we will talk about later. Basically, the most violent, unkillable creature in the entire Foundation. The Reptile tried to crush it, but Tickle Monster just hugged its foot. And then 682 started laughing. A deep, uncontrollable belly laugh that lasted 15 straight minutes. It even asked for more. Of course, once 999 left, 682 snapped and went on a rampage. But even then, 999 risked itself to pull injured staff to safety. What's wild is that 999 still wants to be friends. It tries again and again, and even though 682 swears and threatens it, something in that goo clearly gets through. Fans love Tickle Monster for another reason. There's a popular theory that it's the child of the Scarlet King, a super evil monster god, which again, we'll talk about it later in the last tier. In some stories, the king has 7 children, all evil, except the 7th. That one is pure good, maybe meant to save the world from its father. Fans point out that 999 is 666 upside down. The sign of evil turned into good. So while the Foundation is usually about locking up monsters, they treat 999 like a friend. It's a reminder that there's hope and joy, even in a world full of fear. Some even think 999 might one day save everyone. Level 2. Creepy or strange. The Administrator. Remember when I said the O5 Council answers to someone else? Yeah, this is that someone. The Administrator is the SCP Foundation's final mystery, the one figure even the O5s won't question. In some stories, they follow his orders without hesitation. In others, they don't even know who he is. That's the level we're dealing with. Here's what's on record, sort of. Some documents say the Administrator has been around since the Foundation began, quietly guiding everything from the shadows. Others claim it's a rotating title, only activated when reality starts to collapse, which honestly feels like every other week these days. Whoever, or whatever they are, the Administrator sits at the absolute top. No face, no name, just the occasional memo signed the Administrator. No one knows where they're sent from, or how they override even level 5 clearance. They just appear. In-universe rumors go hard. Some say the Administrator is immortal, quietly aging while the world burns. Others describe their strange abilities, resistance to time warps, memory erasure, even reality glitches. A few internal notes mention anomalous traits consistent across every known Administrator, like slowed aging or immunity to timeline changes. So, naturally, there are theories spiraling from there. Maybe there's been a line of Administrators, each chosen when things get too dangerous for human hands. Or maybe it's a failsafe seat. If the O5s get wiped out, the next person who claims a title becomes god tier overnight. Then you get the wildcard theories. The Administrator isn't real, just a mask one of the O5s wears when they need deniability. Or he is real, but not human. More like a deity wearing a Foundation badge, nudging events from the start. Fans love calling him the man behind the curtain. But when it comes to official files, the line never changes. The true nature or identity of the Administrator remains unknown. And that's probably the most honest thing the Foundation's ever published. Pattern Screamers. It starts as a blank test page. Nothing but placeholder code on the Foundation's website. Meant for back-end testing. Never meant to be seen. Then one day, someone scrolls through it and finds a line buried in the text. But worst of all, you ignore us. We scream and you do nothing. And suddenly, this isn't just a test page anymore. People start noticing more lines of furious broken messages laced through the HTML. Not glitches, not spam. Just rage, desperation, grief. It feels like something is trapped inside the code and it's very aware we're watching. They're called pattern screamers. Not people, not creatures. More like sentient fragments like emotions, memories, and voices that somehow slipped through the cracks of reality and got lodged into data. They talk about being torn from their homes, flung into the blank space between stories. They accuse the Foundation of forgetting them. They blame us, the readers, for doing nothing. And they don't whisper. They scream. Look into our eyes, you miserable wretch. Are you still laughing? It's like the page itself is furious. Basically, a tech support ticket from hell. Or if you prefer, just another Tuesday on Twitter. In one of SCP Wiki's story, a researcher named Rosen makes the test page, but he thinks the weird text is just a glitch or a bad joke. His boss, Director Winters, isn't amused. He wants Rosen to clean up the page, but while they argue, the pattern screamers keep yelling, mixing in their pain and anger with every new update. Some theories say pattern screamers are leftovers from destroyed universes, like scraps of forgotten timelines that somehow stayed conscious. Others think they're raw emotion that's metastasized into code. Either way, they don't want containment. They want to be heard. And you can't trap them. You can't see them. They live in the structure of the database itself. SCP-1529, King of the Mountain. Imagine this. You're climbing Mount Everest, and you've already passed the point where normal rules don't apply. Up here, the air's so thin your brain forgets how to brain. It's called the death zone for a reason. Most people who visit it don't stick around for long, but something or someone does. SCP-1529 is known as the King of the Mountain. Although King is maybe giving him too much credit. He's just a man, or at least that's what he looks like. Heavy parka, snow goggles, the kind of boots you'd expect on a serious mountaineer. Nothing too weird at first glance. But here's the thing, he only appears to climbers who are in real trouble. If you're exhausted, freezing, or half delirious, he's suddenly there, standing just close enough for you to notice. And instead of doing something terrifying, he saves people. Sometimes it's food. Sometimes it's a warm drink. Sometimes just a steady voice that reminds you not to give up. Some climbers swear he walked with them all the way down. Others don't remember the descent at all. They just wake up at base camp, alive. But not everyone. Sometimes he just watches climbers collapse right in front of him, and no one knows why. There's no clear pattern. He's helped solo climbers and left behind groups. He's saved experts and ignored rookies. People wonder, does he only help those who accept his presence? Is there some invisible test? Or does he already know who can make it and who won't? Try to take his pictures and you'll get camera glitch, vanished footage, GPS goes haywire. It's like the mountain itself wants to keep him a secret. The Sherpas have their own stories. Some say he's a lost climber who never left. Others speak about a guardian spirit watching over the mountain's dead. A few call him a hallucination, but the problem is he's too consistent to be fake, too weird to be real. The Foundation doesn't try to contain him. They just log sightings and monitor the area. So far, he hasn't broken any laws of physics too aggressively. No mind control, no teleportation, no dead rising from the snow. Just a man who appears when it matters most. But one thing's clear. He's not random. He's waiting for something. And until someone figures out what, the King of the Mountain remains exactly where he's always been. But here's the thing about wanting to save people. It can be a blessing or a curse. There's this anomaly who's also obsessed with saving humanity. But his saving means transforming you into something far, far worse. We'll talk more about it in Level 3. SCP-166, Teenage Succubus, Daughter of the Goddess. So, imagine being a teenage girl. Except your mom might be a fertility goddess, and every guy who comes near you turns into a total simp. That's life for SCP-166. The Foundation calls her the Teenage Succubus, but that sounds mean. She's not evil, she's just cursed. She grew up in a quiet convent, far from people, raised by nuns who hoped the peace and quiet would help. But it didn't, because her curse always finds a way. If a man spends time near her, it doesn't end well. They get obsessed fast. One guy nearly burned down the whole building trying to save her. Another had a full breakdown. Some won't even leave her room unless they're dragged out. Now the rules are strict. No male staff. No exceptions. But here's the thing. She's not trying to hurt anyone. She doesn't want this. She just wants a normal life. Go outside. Talk to someone without making them write weird love poems. The Foundation's tried stuff, like holy water, charms, therapists, but nothing works. So now they just keep her alone and hope for the best. If you ask her what she wants, she'll just say, I wish people would stop treating me like a curse. She's not a monster. She's just a girl who makes people lose their minds. SCP-4158, Big Charlie. Big Charlie looks like a giant cow, but not the kind you'd see on a farm. Charlie is skinny, pale, and you can see his bones and veins under his skin. He's taller than most cars and just keeps growing, no matter what anyone does. That's right, Charlie can't stop growing. His body makes more and more meat, bones, and even extra parts that shouldn't be there. So the people at the Foundation have to cut pieces off all the time, just to stop him from getting bigger. The weird thing is, the meat isn't magic or dangerous. It's just regular meat. But honestly, would you want to eat a steak that came off a never-ending monster cow? Probably not. How did Charlie start? Well, he didn't come from a normal birth. He literally exploded out of a pregnant cow at a slaughterhouse, which freaked everyone out. The workers tried to kill him, but it never worked. You can shoot him, cut him, burn him. He just healed right back. Instead of calling for help, the owner, Jeff Fine, tried to turn Charlie into a moneymaker. He even started a weird cult, treating Charlie like a god and doing creepy rituals to get more meat. Yeah, not a great business plan. Soon, things got too weird. Charlie escaped and the cult went crazy, and the Foundation had to step in. They cleaned up the mess, erased everyone's memories, and built a special pen to hold Charlie. Now, every week, the staff cut off the new meat and burn it all. They don't want anyone trying to eat it or sell it again. There's still a big question nobody can answer. Was Charlie a natural anomaly or a made one? The original pregnant cow was bought from someone mysterious. Nobody knows who. SCP-4001, Library of Alexandria. This isn't the library you heard about in school. SCP-4001 is way stranger. It's an endless library hidden under the sands of Egypt, where space and time don't really make sense anymore. It's massive. You could walk for days and end up back where you started. The place is stacked with shelves in every direction. If IKEA gives you a headache, this would make you cry. Here's the wild part. Every book in this library is a whole person's life. Anyone you can think of, and tons you can't. Some books are about people who lived 75,000 years ago, back when fire was the hottest new thing. A few are just labeled the baby, or some weird symbol. And here's where it gets creepy. Some books aren't history, they're the future. There are stories here that haven't even happened yet. If you could read your own story ahead of time, would you? Or would knowing your ending just prove everything is set in stone? That's the kind of thing that keeps Foundation researchers up at night. It gets even weirder. In one log, an agent meets an ancient watcher, or SCP-4001-1. He's guarded the place for so long, he's never even heard the Romans fell. He talks like a legend, frozen in time, just waiting for someone to show up and read. The Foundation treats this place like a live bomb. The entrance looks like a boring concrete bunker, but it's loaded with failsafes. Not that it matters. SCP-4001 mostly looks after itself. Maybe it's just waiting for the right reader, or the story's last page. And if you're wondering if the Foundation can read the future now, well, that's the big question, isn't it? Maybe they're running the show, or maybe they're just following a script. But if you think an endless library is strange, there's a rumor that the very fabric of space, every hallway, and every never-ending corridor might all trace back to a tiny object. Up next, SCP-184, The Architect, SCP-01 Theory. Earlier, when we talked about the clockworks twisting reality, I teased an object that might be the true source of every endless hallway and too big to be real anomaly. This is it. This is the thing that might be behind every endless hallway and maze the Foundation ever found. It looks like a weird little ball. Nothing fancy. But if you put it inside a building, everything goes crazy. At first, the rooms just get bigger. Leave it alone longer and new hallways pop up out of nowhere. Give it time and you'll start finding doors that go nowhere. Wooden microwaves, or bookshelves with glass pages. The building turns into an endless, broken maze. Even if you take SCP-184 out, all those weird rooms stay. The Foundation learned this the hard way, so now they keep it outside, strapped to a giant magnet like a boring art piece. If a building even starts growing the wrong way, they don't mess around. Either they destroy it or lock it up. Now, for the wild theory, some fans and even Foundation staff think SCP-184 is actually the real SCP-01. Like, it's the original mistake. The thing that's been stretching the universe since day one. Maybe that's why our world is so full of weirdness. Endless halls, broken rooms, stuff that make no sense. Maybe our whole universe is just one giant SCP-184 accident, always expanding. New rooms showing up with every glitch. Pocket dimensions and impossible spaces are maybe just more of the Architect's mess. There's even a story where Foundation explorers push past the edge of reality and find all kinds of broken worlds. Cities made of poker chips, oceans of acid, planets that look like machines. Everything's off, like SCP-184 got loose and nobody hit stop. So yeah, if the world feels too weird sometimes, maybe it is. Maybe we're all stuck inside one never-ending SCP experiment, and nobody can fix it. Level 3. Noticeably disturbing. SCP-173. The Sculpture. SCP-173 is literally the granddaddy of the SCP universe. It's the very first SCP. It's the original. The one that set the mood for everything else on the site. At first, it just looks like a chunky concrete statue covered in spray paint, standing in a locked cell. But the weirdness starts as soon as you try to leave it alone. Here's the rule. If nobody's watching, it moves fast. Look away for even a second and it rushes across the room. Its specialty is snapping necks. That's why the Foundation sends in teams, so someone's always watching while the other blinks. Slip up and you're gone. What really messes with people is how little we know. There's no history, no backstory, no hints about where it came from. The official file just says how to keep it contained, and even that feels like it's barely enough. Fans call it the Peanut, because yeah, it sort of looks like one. Not too scary until you're in the same room. If you've played SCP Containment Breach, you know about the blink mechanic. You have to manage your blinks, like you're playing a dangerous staring contest with something that really wants you dead. Let me clarify though, the original image used for 173 was an actual sculpture by a Japanese artist. When the site got hit with copyright claims, they took the image down. Fans joke that 173 changed its appearance after a breach. You know, just to keep things extra uncomfortable. By the way, the sculpture isn't the only one that loves a good chase. There's another entity, one with a very different motivation in level 4. Imagine a tall, pale figure who will track you down anywhere in the world, all because you made a mistake of looking at his face. They call him the Shy Guy. He doesn't care how far you run. He will come for you, and you'll hear his scream long before he reaches you. SCP-49, the Plague Doctor. Earlier, we met the King of the Mountain, who helps climbers near death. SCP-49, the Plague Doctor, also believes he's helping, but his methods are terrifying. Imagine an old-timey doctor in black robes with a creepy bird mask wandering around talking about the pestilence. He's polite, even gentle. He'll greet you, ask how you're feeling, maybe even apologize, but get in his way or question his cure, and things get ugly fast. Here's the problem. The Plague Doctor's cure is fatal. One touch and you're done. He claims you're infected, even if you're in perfect health, and then proceeds with his version of surgery. To clarify, this is not the sort of home remedy your grandma would recommend. The Plague Doctor isn't a monster who rages. He's calm. He'll talk for hours about his mission, how important it is, and how nobody understands him. Sometimes you can almost feel sorry for him. He seems sad about what he does, but that never stops him. Every time there's a breach, another unlucky staff member gets cured. And the craziest part? No one knows what the pestilence is. Maybe it's a disease only he sees. Maybe it's all in his head after centuries locked away. The Foundation keeps testing, keeps listening, but the answers never come. Just more empty bodies and sad apologies. But there's a place even the doctor wouldn't dare to visit. A forest where the wrong word can twist reality and your fate. Where every sentence could be your last. That's what we talk about next. SCP-4000. Taboo. The Nameless Forest. Remember when your parents said there were words you just shouldn't say? In SCP-4000, keeping quiet isn't just good manners. It's survival. This is the Nameless Forest. The Foundation calls it Taboo, but that barely covers it. Its name changes every time you talk about it. Actually, everything changes. Names, objects, even your memories. Researchers follow strict rules in this forest. Never use your real name. Never call things what they are. Always talk around it. If you see a tree, you say the tall thing with branches. It sounds ridiculous, but if someone slips up, the result is, well, let's just say the debriefing forums are mostly classified. But there are rumors. People who break the rules come back wrong. They forget their names, or worse, start swapping identities with things in the forest. Some others vanish completely, either absorbed by the woods or by whatever listens when you say the wrong thing. Here's the creepiest part. There's a story about a researcher who tried to call out to a lost friend by name. The forest made 2 versions of his friend. One turned into a tree and one wasn't. Nobody could agree which was real, and soon, nobody knew who anyone was. Even so, the Foundation keeps sending people in. Sometimes to rescue lost staff. Sometimes to trade with the forest's strange residents. But the problem is, every visit changes you a bit. Some people say the only way out is to forget who you were. Others say you never really leave at all. SCP-407, the Song of Genesis. Remember the Succubus, whose very presence could change someone's mind? The Song of Genesis does the same, but for every living cell. Some music helps you relax. Other songs get stuck in your head. But SCP-407 isn't just a song. It's something much stranger, and a whole lot more dangerous. The Foundation calls it the Song of Genesis. Nobody knows who made it, but everybody who hears it learns very quickly that it can't be put in Spotify. SCP-407 is an audio file. It's about 20 minutes long, and at first, it sounds peaceful. People who listen say it reminds them of soft chanting, and a little bit of flute or bird song in the background. But here's the thing. If you play the song anywhere near living things like plants, animals, and people, they start to grow fast. At first, this sounds like a miracle. Their wounds heal, sick people get better, even dead grass springs back to life. But it doesn't stop there. If the song keeps playing, the growth doesn't stop either. The cells split and multiply out of control. Plants get huge and start twisting around the room. People who listen too long aren't just healed. They start turning into biological projects. Their bodies become something else. A mess of new tissues, fungus, roots, and strange lumps that used to be arms and legs. It gets worse. In Foundation tests, a simple room with plants, moss, or even a person inside can turn into a thick jungle in just a few minutes if the song is playing. The listeners can't move or talk once the song really gets going. Instead, they just get swallowed up by the wild growth. The Foundation found SCP-407 by accident. Some old files say it was part of a bigger project, but most of the history is classified. Now the file is kept locked away. The only way to play it is with permission, and even then, only in special rooms where nothing living can hear it. That includes plants and tiny bugs, anything with cells that can grow. The staff even wears special suits just to be safe. Nobody knows where the song came from or what language it's in. Some people think it's ancient, or maybe even something not from this world. The words don't match any known language, and even computers can't figure it out. The only thing that's certain is that this is not a song you ever want to play by mistake. SCP-579, the Nameless Horror. Nobody really knows what SCP-579 is. The Foundation doesn't even try to pretend. If you open its file, you get no photos, no details, black bars, blank spaces, and warnings that basically scream, "Don't ask." Here's what they let slip. SCP-579 is locked away in a secret room, and nobody, seriously, nobody knows what's actually in there. Even high-level staff avoid the area. The rules? Don't open the door, don't peek inside, don't even try to find out more. But if you get close, weird things will happen to you. Some people report headaches, dizziness, and sudden panic, like their brain wants out before they see something they can't handle. Even the toughest Foundation agents make excuses to stay far away. The Foundation does random checks on the chamber, but the main job is just to make sure nobody tampers with it. Basically, the safest plan is to leave it alone and not ask questions. And if someone really tries to dig for answers, that's when things get dangerous. There are cases where staff just vanish, or start acting like they've seen something that shouldn't exist. Most people figure 579 isn't just some monster or strange object. Some say it's worse, a thing that can't be explained, a weapon gone wrong, or maybe a mistake that should have stayed buried. The only rule that matters, don't look for answers you can't handle. And if you do, the Foundation won't save you. They'll pretend they never knew your name. Level 4. Very disturbing. SCP-343. God. Some anomalies are famous for their danger, but SCP-343 stands out for the exact opposite reason. He just seems pleasant. In fact, the first thing the Foundation noticed is that he walked into containment on his own, smiled at security, and introduced himself as God. No dramatic entrance, no lightning. Just a calm, older man who's happy to answer questions. If it wasn't for the paperwork, most staff would probably just call him Grandpa. Here's where it gets interesting. The Foundation has tested him in every way they know. He passes through walls, opens locked doors, and can appear anywhere he wants and at any time. Sometimes he disappears for days, only to reappear in his cell with a news story about visiting old friends or seeing the world. The security footage never catches him leaving, but he's just gone. The Foundation's interview logs are a goldmine of existential crises. 343 will talk about history, science, and philosophy, often referencing events that nobody else could possibly know. Sometimes he gives answers that sound profound. Other times, he's just delightfully vague. For example, when asked about his powers, he usually just shrugs and says, "Well, I am who I am." SCP-343 never seems interested in using his abilities to hurt anyone. He's polite to a fault, never raises his voice, and always asks if staff want to join him for tea. Some researchers actually look forward to interviewing him, because he's the only anomaly who won't ruin your week or try to break containment. There are even rumors that he knows all the Foundation's secrets, but he keeps quiet. Of course, there's always the possibility that it's all an act. Maybe 343 just enjoys messing with people. Or maybe he really is God, and he's just waiting for the right moment to press reset. The Foundation's official stance is observe, don't provoke, which, considering their track record, is probably wise. But while 343 prefers philosophical debates and cookies to chaos, the Foundation can never quite relax around him. After all, if you had God sitting in a cell down the hall, wouldn't you check the security cameras twice? SCP-939. With many voices. SCP-939 is exactly the reason some people never answer calls from unknown numbers, or why some of us never leave the lights off. Imagine a huge, red, dog-shaped lizard with no eyes, no fur, and a mouth that could give you nightmares for a week. It doesn't hunt by sight. It hunts by sound, which means you could be hiding under a desk, holding your breath, and if you so much as sneeze, you're probably on the menu. But that's not even the worst part, because here's where things get weird. SCP-939 can mimic human speech. Not just words, but entire conversations. It remembers voices and repeats things it's heard before. It could call for help, beg for mercy, or repeat the last words of its previous victims. You see, when you're alone in the dark and you hear your best friend's voice asking for help, you want to believe it's real. But that's exactly how 939 gets you. Foundation logs show that these things love to play with their food. For example, they'll use phrases like, "I need help," or come closer, or, for maximum nightmare fuel, your own name. The first time a containment breach happened, security found a whole team chasing what they thought was a missing guard. Turns out it was just 939 baiting them in. 939 isn't evil in the mustache-twirling villain sense, it's just a predator, one that's evolved, or maybe was designed to turn trust into a death sentence. The staff are told not to respond to anything they hear in the dark. There are even reports that 939 can imitate specific people, down to favorite catchphrases or inside jokes, which means if it ever learns to say it's just a prank, bro, you're probably not getting out. But there's another monster that doesn't even need tricks. It slips silently through walls, grabs its victims, and drags them screaming into a dark, rotting dimension where no one ever escapes. SCP-106, the Old Man. They call him the Old Man. And if you're picturing some kindly grandpa, you're way off. Imagine the world's most decrepit corpse, soaked in tar, wearing the world's worst grin. 106 can pass through solid walls, corrode metal with a touch, and disappear into thin air whenever he feels like it. But the worst part isn't the smell, the slime, or the bone-chilling silence he leaves behind. It's what he does to his victims. If he gets you, you're not just dead. He'll drag you into his pocket dimension, a nightmare world of rust, shadows, and endless agony. Foundation staff have a saying: if 106 breaches containment, run. Don't be a hero, just run. But here's the interesting part. Nobody really knows why he does this. He doesn't talk, doesn't bargain, doesn't even seem angry. He's just there, waiting. 106 wasn't always a monster. Before he was the Old Man, he was just a soldier, a young, stubborn guy imprisoned in a prisoner of war camp like Gulag. The guards tried everything to break him: starvation, torture, psychological games. For a while, it looked like they might win, but the kid just wouldn't die. Every day, he held on, outlasting everyone else who gave up. Eventually, he slowly snapped. He stopped speaking, stopped eating. He just endured, like he was waiting for the world to catch up with his misery. And when the guards finally checked his cell, he was gone. All that remained was a sense of rot and decay, the kind that seeps into the walls and never really washes out. The Foundation's best guess is that something about that suffering twisted him, transforming the young man into the predator known as SCP-106. SCP-96, the Shy Guy. Remember the sculpture's deadly game of tag? The Shy Guy takes the concept even further. With him, it isn't just about not blinking. It's about never, ever seeing what you shouldn't. If you're even a little curious with this guy, you're already in danger. There are stories in the Foundation files about entire teams getting wiped out because someone, somewhere, accidentally captured his face with satellite. SCP-96, better known as the Shy Guy. He's famous for one rule, and it's brutally simple. Never look at his face. Not in person, not in a photo, not even on a blurry security cam. Because the second you do, that's it. Game over. Here's the basic rundown. 96 is a tall, unnaturally thin humanoid, pale as a ghost and twice as unsettling. You might think he'd be easy to ignore, but unfortunately, you don't have to meet him to have a problem. All it takes is catching a glimpse of his face, anywhere, anytime. Once that happens, he goes from sobbing in his cell to sprinting toward you at breakneck speed. Distance doesn't matter. He'll find you. Like a certain snail, except this time, the thing chasing you isn't slow, and you're definitely not laughing. You could be on another continent, hiding in a submarine, or chilling at Comic-Con dressed as Batman. He will get to you. Now here's where things get truly disturbing. Before he catches up to you, 96 lets out an unholy scream, then launches into a rage so intense he'll rip through doors, armored vehicles, and, most importantly, any hope Foundation cleanup crews had for an easy work week. Once he arrives, the results are always the same. Total, gruesome annihilation of the person who saw his face. Afterward, 96 sits down, gets quiet again, and waits for the next unlucky soul. You might be thinking, why not just keep him in the dark? The Foundation tried that. They keep him in a sealed, windowless box, with constant surveillance and every photo or video file under lock and key. But accidents happen. Files get mixed up. Someone opens the wrong email. Suddenly, you're on the clock. There are theories, of course. Maybe he was made this way. Maybe he's the universe's worst answer to, what if Medusa was just really, really sad? But ultimately, 96 is a walking, screaming reminder that sometimes curiosity really does kill the cat. And no amount of satisfaction is going to bring it back. SCP-682, hard to destroy reptile. This guy isn't shy like the previous guy. He's dangerous because he hates you. Actually, he hates everyone and everything, including the furniture. The Foundation calls him the hard to destroy reptile. It's a massive, vaguely crocodilian creature covered in thick, armored scales and radiating the kind of aggression you'd expect from a lizard that never got its morning coffee. But here's the thing. 682 is smart. He learns, he adapts, and he never stops looking for a way out. Over the years, the Foundation has tried everything short of dropping him into the sun. Acid baths, incinerators, high explosives, biological weapons, you name it. They've wasted the budget on it. Yet every time 682 survives. Sometimes he even grows stronger or comes back with a new trick, just to keep the staff on their toes. There's an infamous experiment log where the Foundation, in a moment of either desperation, tried to pit 682 against other anomalies. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. SCP-173, the moving statue, didn't even faze him. When they pit him against a shy guy, that was a disaster for both parties. And now there's a whole section of the building that's just off limits. Now, if you remember the tickle monster, you know the story. They put 999, the happiest blob in the world, in with 682. And it actually worked. For a few minutes, 682 laughed. He rolled around, played, acted like a giant happy puppy. Then, just like that, he went right back to hating everything. Even pure happiness couldn't last long. Only 682 could turn a playdate with living joy into a tantrum. You might be wondering why the Foundation doesn't just let him go. The answer is simple. He doesn't want freedom. He wants to wipe out everything. Nobody really knows what made him this angry, but he takes it out on anything that moves. What really keeps people up at night is that 682 seems to hold a grudge. He remembers faces, patterns, and even Foundation staff. There are rumors he communicates with other anomalies, or at least understands them on some level. One handler once joked that 682 was like a Reddit user with scales. Petty, vindictive, and always holding on to receipts. So, in short, if you want to see the SCP Foundation at their most desperate, check the logs for 682. You'll find a lot of failed ideas, destroyed labs, and the quiet sense that nobody really knows what to do, except keep buying more acid. SCP-1. Major proposals. The Gate Guardian, the factory, etc. SCP-1 isn't one object or creature. It's the biggest mystery in the Foundation by design. The top bosses didn't want anyone, even their own agents, to know the real story. So they made a bunch of possible files, called the 001 proposals, each claiming to be the truth behind SCP-1. If you go looking, you'll find a giant warning at the top saying you could die just from reading about it. It's all about keeping everyone in the dark. So what is SCP-1 really? Nobody knows for sure. The proposals all tell a different story. One of the most famous is the factory. This file says the Foundation was born in a monstrous factory in the 1800s. The place was run by a man named Mr. Anderson, who used dark rituals and brutal magic to make supernatural things. Workers were sacrificed to keep the magic running. Eventually, the people who would later become the Foundation stormed the place, cut a deal with the living heart of the factory, and agreed to keep feeding it bodies. Hence why D-class prisoners still get sent into danger. They saved the world, but the cost was a guilty, bloody secret at the Foundation's core. Another big proposal is Gate Guardian. In this story, SCP-1 is a massive sword-wielding angel standing guard near the Tigris-Euphrates. The angel burns anything that gets too close, and can't be stopped by any weapon. Some think it's the biblical Guardian of Eden, keeping something much worse locked away. The only word it's ever spoken is "forgive me," which just makes the whole thing even more haunting. There's also When the Day Breaks. In this scenario, SCP-1 is the end of the world itself. The sun changes, and anyone touched by sunlight melts into living sludge. Creatures that just want to drag others into their nightmare. There's no fixing this one, just surviving as long as you can. Other proposals throw out even wilder ideas. Some say SCP-1 is a machine god, or a reality-bending database, or a demon king called the Scarlet King. Every theory is different, and nobody can say for sure which, if any, were true. Maybe that's the point. The Foundation would rather drown us in secrets and lies than let anyone figure out what's really behind SCP-1. And in a world this strange, maybe it's safer that way. SCP-3000. Anantashesha. Imagine a sea monster so big, nobody even knows how long it really is. That's SCP-3000. People call it Anantashesha, after the endless serpent from Hindu legends. But in the SCP world, it's a massive eel hiding deep in the Bay of Bengal, maybe hundreds of kilometers long. The Foundation has seen parts of it, sometimes a head, sometimes a long body, but nobody's seen all of it at once. SCP-3000 barely moves. Most of the time, it just lies in the dark ocean, almost like it's sleeping. But the scary part isn't what it does with its body. It's what it does to your mind. Anybody who gets close to the eel, like divers or submarine crews, starts to feel really strange. First, it's fear, then panic, then confusion, and then you start forgetting things. Some people even start seeing things that aren't there. Some fall into a trance and stop answering their radios. In the worst case, SCP-3000 will suddenly lunge forward and eat someone whole. Sometimes the person keeps transmitting for a few moments after getting swallowed. That part is truly disturbing. But here's why the Foundation puts up with it. SCP-3000 makes a special gray slime called Y909. This slime is really important because it's the main ingredient for the Foundation's best memory-erasing drugs, called amnestics. These drugs are what the Foundation uses to make people forget about monsters, ghosts, and other SCPs. Amnestics made with Y909 are much safer and last longer than the old versions. They're so good that people almost never remember what happened, even years later. But there's a problem. SCP-3000 only makes this slime after it eats a person, usually a D-class, which means a prisoner. After SCP-3000 feeds, it goes quiet for a couple of hours. During that time, special dive teams rush to its head and collect the Y909 before the eel wakes up again. It's very dangerous. Divers can lose their minds or get eaten too if they aren't careful. Still, the Foundation keeps doing it because they need Y909 to keep the world safe from secrets. Some scientists in the Foundation wonder if SCP-3000 is eating more than just flesh. Maybe it's feeding on people's minds or even their souls. That would explain why people nearby feel so confused or forgetful. There's something sad and scary about it. The same eel that eats your memories is helping the Foundation make others forget, too. SCP-3000 is special because the Foundation isn't just locking it away. They're actually using it. Officially, it's called Thaumiel class, which means it helps the Foundation, even if it's a nightmare. Level 5. God forgive me. SCP-2845. The Deer. If you ever wondered what would happen if a cosmic horror wore antlers, look no further. SCP-2845, better known as the Deer, is the kind of anomaly that makes everyone in the Foundation's ritual department sweat through their lab coats. Forget Rudolph, this one doesn't just guide slays. It could rewrite reality with a look. Let's start with the basics. SCP-2845 looks like a massive 6-horned deer, but that's where the nature documentary stuff ends. It suddenly appeared in Greenland, destroyed a coal mine, and then transforming people and objects into chemically complex objects, causing weather anomalies and making the town nearby a focal point for international media before the Foundation intervened. Nobody knows where it came from. Maybe another dimension, or maybe a failed science project. What's special about the deer isn't just its appearance. It warps reality around itself, and the only thing keeping it from breaking loose is a containment ritual so complicated it would make a Catholic priest give up. We're talking candles, salt circles, chanting, costumes, the whole 9 yards. And if the ritual slips even once, 2845 starts transforming everything nearby into strange, impossible shapes. Concrete becomes citrus fruit. People become cubes of frozen gas. And occasionally, the color orange decides to just not mean orange anymore. So what's the Foundation's solution? Build an entire facility around 2845, staffed with people who do nothing but memorize and perform rituals day and night. If someone misses a step, even by a second, all bets are off. Some poor interns have nightmares about dropping the wrong colored candle. To put it simply, nobody wants to be the reason the world ends because we messed up the deer dance. If that sounds excessive, keep in mind that every previous attempt to kill or move 2845 has failed spectacularly. Missiles, poison, even nuclear weapons, but nothing leaves a scratch. In fact, trying to harm it usually makes the rituals harder, or just causes more chaos. Some Foundation staff whisper that 2845 is a god, or maybe an exile from somewhere far worse. Others think it's proof that the universe really is run by a committee, one with a twisted sense of humor and a fondness for antlers. But the truth doesn't really matter, as long as everyone keeps lighting the candles and praying nothing goes wrong. SCP-2317, a door to another world. Some SCPs are scary because of what they do. SCP-2317 is scary because of what might happen if anyone makes a mistake. At first, it just looks like an old wooden door in the middle of an empty room. But this door is actually the one thing standing between us and something so big and dangerous it could end everything. Behind the door is a place the Foundation calls another world, but nobody's really sure what it really is. All they know is that it's home to something they call the Devourer of Worlds, a huge being that's chained up and kept out of our world by a handful of weak links and a bunch of strange rituals. Every day, Foundation staff perform the same routine: lighting candles, drawing chalk circles, reading from old books and repeating steps exactly as written. They don't really know why it works. They just know that if they stop, the chains get weaker. And here's the thing, the chains are already breaking. According to the Foundation's own files, the rituals are less and less effective every year. The door is starting to crack. Sometimes staff hear rumbling, voices, or even the floor shake. There's a feeling of pressure, like the world itself is holding its breath. The Foundation tries to keep everyone calm. The official story is that everything is under control, and as long as the rules are followed, we'll all be fine. But if you read between the lines, it's clear the Foundation is just hoping for the best. If the last chain breaks and the Devourer gets out, it's over. Not just for the Foundation, but for the world. Nobody knows where the Devourer came from. Some people think it's a punishment for something humanity did a long time ago. Others say it's just a monster that got trapped here by accident. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that every day, staff show up and do the rituals and hope they're not too late. But imagine an anomaly that doesn't just threaten the world. It threatens reality itself. It knows it's inside a story and can rewrite anything, even your memories, with just a thought. SCP-3812, A Voice Behind Me. If you ever wondered how weird SCPs can get, SCP-3812 is as deep as it goes. Once, 3812 was just a regular guy named Sam Howell. He died in 1996 and was buried, but that wasn't the end. Sam came back to life, but not as a normal human. He changed. He became something the Foundation could barely understand. Now, SCP-3812 doesn't really have a true form. Sometimes it looks like a person, but that changes all the time. What 3812 actually does is even stranger. It can change reality itself, whenever and however it wants. If it doesn't want the Foundation to find it, it can simply erase the people who were searching for it, or even erase the whole search ever happening. Most people don't even notice reality has shifted. Sometimes people just vanish, and nobody even remembers them. The Foundation can't contain SCP-3812. The best they can do is watch from far away and try to keep people from getting too close. There's a group assigned to follow its movements, but the truth is, 3812 can go anywhere, at any time. Its powers go way beyond what anyone can handle. But here's where it gets really wild. SCP-3812 doesn't just change the world. It's starting to realize it's a character in a story, like someone in a comic book who knows they're being drawn. And it's not just one layer. It realizes there's a story about the story, and a story about that story, going up forever. Each time 3812 ascends, it understands a little more, but also loses its grip on what's real. For 3812, every step up is like going from a 2D cartoon into 3D, then into 4D, and so on. The higher it goes, the less it understands, and the more it hears the voices of authors and narrators above him. That's where the name comes from, A Voice Behind Me. When Sam Howell was alive, he had schizophrenia and heard voices. Now, those voices are real. He actually hears voices from higher realities, maybe even from whoever's out there writing his story right now. The story turns deeply sad and unsettling. 3812 is losing his mind as he climbs reality's ladder, and he can never stop. Sometimes he tries to help people by erasing their suffering, but really he just deletes them from existence. In the file, there's a moment when a Foundation scientist, Dr. Yamamara, realizes even he might be a story. At the end, Yamamara writes in terror, "It's seen us." The idea is that 3812 may one day reach our level, and if he does, he could rewrite or erase our world without us ever knowing. SCP-231, The Seven Brides. The Seven Brides is one of the most infamous and debated stories in the Foundation. People still argue about it on forums, and honestly, for good reason. It starts with 7 girls, each kidnapped by a doomsday cult called the Children of the Scarlet King. This isn't just any cult, but one that worships a cosmic horror, a being so dangerous the Foundation treats it like a walking apocalypse, which we will talk about in more detail in the next entry. The plan was simple, but horrifying. Use the girls as vessels to bring the Scarlet King's monstrous children into our world. By the time the Foundation arrived, most of the damage had already been done. After they were brought in, the brides started dying one by one. The first was killed during the Foundation's initial attempt to recover the group. She gave birth to something unnatural and didn't survive. The second died on an operating table when Foundation doctors tried to remove her fetus, but the procedure triggered a disaster. The third couldn't take the psychological strain anymore and ended her own life in containment. The fourth died after Foundation staff tried to expel her fetus using an SCP pill, SCP-500, but the remains caused another deadly reaction, killing her and others. The fifth died after the Foundation's daily ritual failed. She gave birth just an hour later. The resulting birth unleashed another apocalyptic event. What kind? The Foundation doesn't say. But records showed that reality itself seemed to bend. Some researchers were never found, and the incident log only lists them as lost to the anomaly. The sixth was killed during an escape attempt. Foundation staff tried to save her, but both she and the agent died, unleashing yet another catastrophe. So now, only one, SCP-231-7, is left. The Foundation's solution is brutal. She's kept chained to a hospital bed in a soundproof cell, never sedated, never left alone. Her food and fluids come by IV, and there's only one thing that keeps the world safe, a daily event called Procedure 110, Montauk. Nobody outside the highest ranks knows exactly what this ritual involves. All the details are redacted, and every staff member who's ever been involved is under strict orders not to speak about it. The official file admits, Procedure 110 Montauk is as horrible as you've heard. That's about as close as the Foundation gets to a confession. What is actually happening in there? The Foundation rotates in 6 Class D personnel every day. These aren't just any prisoners. These are people picked for obedience, who've been through psychological screening and have explosive collars on just in case. If a D-class doesn't come back from the procedure, their collar detonates. There's no anesthesia, no mercy. The staff aren't even allowed to comfort her, and any sympathy is grounds for immediate removal, or worse. The entry doesn't spell out the details. Most readers and fans believe the ritual involves extreme sensitive violence, but others have written fan stories where it's just psychological torment, or some kind of supernatural fear ritual. Still, the Foundation is clear about one thing. Whatever they're doing, it's the only thing standing between our world and total annihilation. Let's talk about the Scarlet King. The Scarlet King. If the SCP universe has a final boss, this is it. So who or what is the Scarlet King? He's not just a monster. He's more like a dark god, or a force of pure evil that exists outside our world. People see him as a huge, terrifying king wearing red, crowned with flames, surrounded by chaos. Sometimes he shows up as a monster with red tentacles, horns, or just as a huge shadow of hate. He doesn't really have one body. Instead, he's like a storm of bad energy that wants to break through into our world. In the stories, the Scarlet King lives in his own nightmarish dimension, always looking for a way in. If he ever breaks through, that's the end of our world. People talk about CK or XK class events, which just means goodbye world. He is the enemy of order, reality, and hope. Let's pick up where we left off from the 7 brides. That's where the king first showed up. Each bride was forced to carry the Scarlet King's child, and you already know how that goes. But the last bride is still alive, locked away under the Foundation's harshest containment. Every single day, they perform a ritual on her that's so brutal, no one even dares write down what actually happens. The reason? If the ritual ever stops, the last child might be born, and the king could finally break through. But here's the twist. Some Foundation leaders later wondered if all that pain and fear was actually making the king stronger. When they finally stopped the rituals and just treated 2317 with kindness, nothing bad happened. That made people wonder, maybe the king feeds on suffering, and by being cruel, the Foundation was helping him all along. The Scarlet King isn't just a story. He has cults, fanatics who want to bring him here. The Foundation has fought them for years, sometimes wiping out entire groups. There are hints that other SCPs are his children or his servants, like SCP-682, the unkillable reptile we talked about before. Some say he's the king's 4th son, full of pure hate. And then there's SCP-999, the tickle monster, which we already met. Lots of fans think 999 is the king's 7th child, but this one turned out pure good, a blob of hope who might one day stand against his father. That's the wild part. 999's number is literally 666 flipped. Hope against hate. The Foundation is so scared of the Scarlet King, they try to cover him up. Sometimes they even spread fake rumors, like saying SCP-2317 is the real big bad, just to keep people from learning the truth. The king is self-containing, stuck in his own dimension, for now, but the fear is always there. One day, he might break free. In fan art, he's shown as a huge demon with crowns, surrounded by blood and nightmares. Every story about ritual blood, sacrifice, or unstoppable evil points back to him. He is chaos itself, the thing behind the curtain, the reason the Foundation never truly relaxes. So, in summary, the Scarlet King is the shadow over everything in SCP. He's not in a cell, he's in the dark, waiting. And maybe, just maybe, if you think back to the tickle monster, you'll remember that in a universe built on darkness, even the smallest bit of joy might matter more than anyone realizes. Humanity's going to hell. This isn't one single SCP or secret file. It's the gut punch you get from the darkest corners of the Foundation. The sense that, no matter what, humanity's fate is just pain and misery. Sometimes it's literal. Here's how it plays out. In some stories, the world ends with a bang. In others, everything just breaks down slowly. But the real nightmare comes when the Foundation learns something so horrible, so hopeless, that the only mercy left is ending it all. Take SCP-5000. This story is famous for flipping the whole SCP universe on its head. One day, the very people meant to protect us, the Foundation, just start killing everyone. The crazy part is nobody knows what secret broke them. There's only hints, coded messages telling staff to harden your hearts, and secret files that shut people up for good. What did they find out? Most people think the answer is simple and chilling. God hates us. The universe itself wants us to suffer. Maybe the afterlife is just a torture chamber. Or maybe the Scarlet King already won and every soul is just fuel for his nightmare. It gets worse. In Dead Men, an SCP-1 story, death itself stops working. People can't die, even if their bodies rot and fall apart. Earth turns into a living hell, packed with people trapped in suffering. Maybe the afterlife is full, or maybe it's locked up, so souls just pile up with nowhere to go. Other SCPs gives us glimpses of what comes after death, and it's never good news. SCP-2718 drops the bomb that your mind might stay awake inside your corpse, stuck in endless decay forever. That's as bad as it gets, and the Foundation fights hard to keep it secret. Then there's SCP-7179. Every time someone dies, their mind is shipped off to some weird endless prison. Call it hell, call it whatever you want. It's just more proof that there's no escape. But sometimes, humanity's going to hell isn't about fire and devils. It's just about everything getting worse, with nobody able to stop it. Maybe the Scarlet King finally drags every soul into his nightmare world. Maybe the universe just grinds down to emptiness, and everyone knows what's coming. In SCP-5000, they leave it vague on purpose. Maybe the O5s learned the ugliest truth of all. God hates us, reality is wired to hurt us, and nothing good sticks around. So they decide to end everything themselves. Because in the SCP universe, extinction is the last mercy anyone's got. The true SCP-1. You've reached the very bottom of the iceberg, so here it is. The real answer to everything. Ready? The true SCP-1 is the comments section. Yeah, the true SCP-1 are the friends we made along the way. After digging through all the cosmic horror, lost gods, and Foundation secrets, what's left? Just people sharing the stories and arguing about canon at 3 a.m. Nah, I'm just messing with you. Those are all the entries we have. See you guys in the next iceberg.